Hey everyone, today we are diving into one of the absolute most pressing questions for anyone looking at potentially moving to the state of Florida over the next 12 to 24 months. Should you realistically commit to the purchase of a home while prices are headed to where they're going to be at the balance of the year? And I know it seems like an overly simplified thing, it seems obvious, but if you read a lot of the stuff out there and you're sitting on a state seeing on one side of, we've already crashed, or if we're not in a crash now, it's definitely going to be 2026. Contrast to that, you'll see, it's not a crash, it's just a cool down, it's just a correction. This is where we should be at all times, and we just went wayward for a minute. And I think it's just difficult to make a decision as important as this with all of that conflicting information. So I want to basically attack a few items in today's video in just a data-driven, analytical, no-frills manner is the goal. Where exactly do we stand in the state of Florida right now? Why are prices dropping to where they're going? Cool down versus correction, like what's that look like? And I'll give you my opinion on that, my personal opinion on that. Can a out-of-state buyer actually benefit for some of the volatility that's happening? And then if they can, finally, should you buy now, or is there a benefit in waiting? So I hope you enjoy the take. If we have not met, my name is Adam Hancock. If I can personally assist you in any way within the Florida real estate market, please don't hesitate to reach out. And without further ado, let's hop in. All right, so let's talk about Florida, because there was a time not that long ago that people were just completely panic buying real estate all across the state. You had eBay style bidding. There was 100+ cars showing up at single open houses, just absolute insanity across the board. But that is not the case anymore. According to Redfin right now, the median cost in Florida has hit about $411,000, which is a 2.9 percentage point drop year over year. And then if you kind of like isolate certain areas, Tampa Bay, Florida, for example, 3+ points. So it gets even more drastic in a silo. And you could say, all right, well, maybe that's a big city thing, Tampa specific thing. It's not. Sarasota and Manatee counties, which I would say the heavy majority of people that reach out to us personally are targeting, have some of the largest declines across not just the state, but the country as a whole. And if you zoom in even one step further and say, let me grab Northport and even go a little south to Cape Coral, over the last 60 days, 1 in 3 listings had a pricing drop. I mean, the Zillow Home Index barely even has time to update. These numbers are changing so frequently. And on top of all of that, you have home builders throwing out $25,000 to $75,000 discounts. You're seeing mortgage rate buy downs, free $18,000 golf carts, kitchen upgrades, you name it. I mean, we're in a borderline BOGO situation in certain circumstances. But here's the kicker to all that. While prices are declining, inventory is simultaneously exploding. I mean, you have single family listings across the state of Florida up nearly 32%. I don't even know if you want to talk about condominiums, but if you do, they sit at 36%. I mean, Miami-Dade County in South Florida, 40% increase in listings year over year. So what does it all mean? It basically means that we went from offering $100,000 over list price and also waiving inspections in 2021 to saying, take it or leave it. Oh, by the way, I also want to sign today and I don't want to close till January. Things have flipped. Sellers and home builders are simply sweating. And for the very first time in years, home buyers may just have the upper hand. So why exactly are these home prices dropping the way they are? First is mortgage rates. Right now we sit at about a 30-year fixed at 6.7%, which is nearly double what many people are locking in around 2021. And back then, I mean, you could argue that a lot of this was cheaper to borrow than even car loans. So that $500,000 house is now $800 a month more on average than it would have been, which obviously knocks a ton of the buyer pull out of the market. Number 2, inventory overload. During the boom, home builders went absolutely all in. They were cranking out houses like it was a race. They were trying to keep up with the pandemic frenzy, as well as the general hype around the exodus of other states to the Florida dream freedom, albeit a lot of truth to it. It was still crazy. But now demand is cooled, interest rates are up, and now those homes are hitting the market, which means a combination of a surplus of listings while simultaneously having fewer qualified buyers willing and able to make the jump. And then there is the always fun topic of insurance, and this one's brutal. Florida now technically has the highest average insurance premiums in the entire country. It stands all by itself in not the greatest way. Some coastal counties average $11,000+ per home a year. This is like having a second mortgage, except this one you never get to pay off. And if all of that's not enough for you, let's heave just one more potential issue on top of this proverbial dumpster fire, for lack of better words, I'm describing here, and that's the condominium issue. After the Surfside disaster down in Miami, the state was just forced to put in upgraded inspection and reserve law. Fair enough, rightfully so, but what that did to HOAs is 15 to 25% monthly increase in some cases in buildings that they wouldn't normally be. So you have people paying $800 to $1,000 a month, and not for the Ritz-Carlton residences right on the bay. And this doesn't include mortgage, insurance, taxes, none of that, just simply building upkeep. So now combine all of that. You have high mortgage rates, you have high insurance, rising HOA, you throw taxes in there as well, and that prospective affordable Florida house that used to exist is not becoming as much anymore. And it's not a wonder why many buyers are at the very minimum hitting the pause button, and then sellers, due to that, are starting to sweat. All right, so real quick, at this point in the video, I want to make one clarification. I don't think this is 2008. Yes, prices are falling. Yes, inventory is up simultaneously, and crash is simply the sexy and trending thing to say, but I don't think it's a crash in the way that people think about it. And my reasoning behind this opinion is simply, in one part, many people that bought in the last couple of years are sitting on a ton of equity. They locked in lower mortgage rates. They're not desperate to sell. They're not underwater. And unless they frankly have to move, they're just kind of sitting back on the sidelines riding the wave. You know, also lenders aren't handing out loans like free samples anymore. That you have to qualify, you have to prove your income, you have to have a credit score that you have intentionally cultivated. So in that part, I don't think we're staring at the foreclosure wave in the same way we have in the past at very similar looking mirror markets. But what I would say is that little bit of optimism doesn't necessarily mean everything's rosy either. And some markets are really starting to wobble more than others. You have areas like Winter Haven in Central Florida, Tampa, which I mentioned. There's serious indicators that have these two placed at some of the highest risk for decreases across the entire state. Not little stuff, like 10 to 15% declines in certain pieces of these cities if things keep trending the way they are. And another example, I was reading through a study the other day that had 24 separate Florida real estate markets flagged as kind of fragile price decline risks going out of 2025 into 2026. And it wasn't just random internet opinion. You know, you had spots like Tampa, Lakeland, Palm Bay, Northport, Cape Coral, all identified by very specific and recent market data. Inventory surges, pricing declines, weakening job growth, and affordability ratios that were just out of whack with what the rest of the macro market should be. Basically things that just ran a little too hot during the boom, and then old school real estate fundamentals would say this isn't sustainable. So with all of that being said, to me, likely we're not in an absolute free fall. We're more in a market that is slowly correcting from the wildly over-caffeinated price increases that happened during a siloed period of a pandemic boom. So you could think of Florida like it got a little too ahead of itself. It's in some level of a detox now, and it is coming back down to the foundation slowly, albeit. And depending on the specific market you're looking in, the descent could be far from over. Okay, now let's just shift gears for a few moments and talk about some potential buyer perks and pitfalls. And this is where it really gets interesting because, like I mentioned, for the first time in years, long time, buyers have a little breathing room. There's no more bidding wars. There's no more waiving all of the necessary and attractive parts of the buyer side of a contract, you know, paying differentials for under appraisals. That era is over, at least for now. And sellers and home builders are really starting to feel this because they're offering the works, you know, price cuts, closing credits, flexible contingencies, upgrades, you name it. And unlike 2021, you actually have some options because for the most part, inventory is not up in one category, it's up across the board. You see condominiums, single families, new construction, resale. So you can be poised, you can shop, compare, and negotiate all things that you didn't have leisure to do in the same way in years past. But like any of these things, the big elephant in the room caveat is the flip side. With any of these discounting conversations, yes, you get a more favorable cost due to the lessened demand, the oversupply, and these kind of attractive measures. But you still can't get rid of most of the non-mortgage expenses. You still have the required insurance, the taxes, maybe flood insurance on top of that, HOA. And so it's just kind of a balancing, juggling act altogether. And one thing I want to throw on top of that, it's not nothing, is Florida is a micro market state. You know, Sarasota is not the same as St. Pete. Fort Myers is not the same as Port St. Lucie. So it's not just buying in the Sunshine State, it's buying smart, intentional, and timely. So to conclude today's video, we have all these talking points in our head, and the question remains, should you buy now or should you wait? My opinion lies in, you know, if you're thinking long term, 5+ years is your plan to be here, you have financial independence security or even job security, then yes, now could be one of the absolute best times in Florida we've had in a long time to do something. You can negotiate, you're not fighting 12 people off for everything you're trying to do. I mean, God forbid you could take a weekend and actually think about a decision you're trying to make. That's a gift in Florida real estate. And granted, if interest rates do decline over the next 5 years, then there inevitably will be a frenzy in a state that people are always going to move to that will drive up demand as well as prices alongside of it. And if you're already in a home and that happens, you could refinance. But on the other hand, if you sit in a different camp where, say, you're trying to do a short-term like investment flip, you want to buy something and even hold it and try to cash flow it, or maybe more notably, you're just preliminary in your search, you're not sure, you haven't looked enough, and you feel a little bit of pressure of what you should do, I don't think you should, because I think that a lot of these markets, there's still at least 2 to 5% that we could slip down into. And what that gives you, not necessarily a pot at the end of the rainbow, as much as it just gives you poised and allows you to be patient. I don't know if I'd wait 24 months plus to move to an area that I really want to move to, especially to escape an area that I really want to leave and winters and all that kind of stuff, to gain 2 percentage points on price. But at the same time, to say that you can't wait because of your personal situation, your job, logistics, your family, whatever you need to wait for, not rush into anything and not get a very similar, if not better situation in the future, would also be rare. So in summation, my advice in a nutshell would be to primarily focus on total cost of ownership. Get the best possible situation that you think you can get with all the data available. Buy that situation in a market in the state of Florida that has a long history of holding its value versus a risky kind of trending market at the time. And then to the best of your ability, have no regrets and try to enjoy it. Because in Southwest Florida, especially in the Tampa Bay, Sarasota, Naples market, to me, the real estate is much more about time in the market than intelligently and predatorily timing it. All right, my friends, that is a wrap on today's video on the Florida Relocation Guide. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. If you enjoyed the video and you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Just the best way to see what's coming next. Beyond that, a couple quick housekeeping items. I own a full-scale residential real estate brokerage. It's called the Sunshine State Company. So if I can assist you in buying, selling, investing, it's not mutually exclusive just to new construction and relocation, but we are deep, deep, deep in that world. Please consider reaching out. We take a very similar approach. It's right on the back of this kind of, economics first kind of leverage standpoint of doing the same things repeatedly. So you can call, text, email, and I think you'll feel kind of what I'm trying to articulate if you do that. It would be very similar to this kind of experience if you resonate with these videos. Beyond that, there's a couple like kind of autonomous things that you can also do on the website, the sunshinestateco.com. One is free guides. I have these high-level relocation guides that are just nice like flip books. I try to update them as much as I can, and it's going to give favorite like neighborhoods personally, places to eat, things to do, stuff like that. And even separate kind of the cities from each other within the counties. So just a real kind of like, 30,000 foot view. That is on the site. We have Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, Venice. There's a statewide Florida one as well. So check that out. One of my favorite things about anything we put out is we send one email every 30 days. It's kind of like a manifesto. I'll show it here. And you can reach out and ask for the last one if you're not currently on it. It's a 30-day loop. So the nice thing about that is we can just jam everything we've been working on, real-time incentives that builders are doing right now, experiences that customers are doing a little bit ahead of you, and stuff that maybe expires in 40 days that's interesting now, though, that doesn't have to be as evergreen as some of these videos. So it's just called 30-day email. I think I have a tab on my website called the same thing. It's just a quick kind of exchange for your email address. So I think that's a nice thing to do. And then we also have, I've been loading up a lot more text versions. So I know the videos are like tricky to consume. It's not for everybody. And I mean, I would consider doing like an audio only thing too, if you don't have time to kind of like sit here and watch me babble on. But we've been transcribing a lot of it to text in blog format, and then I've also been adding a bunch of layers of interactive maps on the website, so you can check that out and just kind of work through a rabbit hole, which most people, if you start it saying that everything's Sarasota, eventually you're going to narrow and say, well, is it Lakewood Ranch or what's Venice to Lakewood Ranch, and you're going to start diving deeper and deeper and deeper, and the website lets you go a little bit into that naturally, like weaving through, and then there's resale listings that you could view in those areas. There is utility and city data and everything in between. So if none of that matters to you and you just want to reach out and chat, please consider doing that as well. Thank you guys so much for consuming any of my content here on the Florida Relocation Guide, and we'll see you on the next one.